Folks, welcome back to the EEOC series. This is video 4 in the series, and this one is a very important video on what you should do and more importantly, what you should not do when going through an EEOC complaint. And this is from real life experience. This is not hypothetical situations, and so I think you're going to find it very useful to protect yourself, to protect the complainant, protect the process, keep everybody safe, and most importantly, keep you safe and out of trouble while you're going through this process. So please enjoy, and if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button. I would really appreciate that, and subscribe to our channel. I have more videos, training videos coming out on a variety of topics that you do not want to miss. Thank you for being here. Let's get into the video. All right, so in this section, we're going to talk about how do you respond. You have a complaint, it's been filed, you're going through it. What are the things you should be doing? What are the things you should not be doing? And this is very important because you don't want to make a mistake at this junction and do something that could negatively affect the outcome of your complaint that's against your office, your employee, or whatever. So there's some do's and some don'ts you should be doing. And let me say this, going through these complaints can be very tough on the leader, the supervisor. And sometimes it can be very disappointing. Sometimes employees that you were trying to help, that you were trying to really counsel and work with, will file a complaint. And in my case, not only was that me trying to help the employee, other folks were trying to help him, other managers were trying to help him. And so it's very disappointing when you get a complaint by that employee that you were trying to help. And so this comes with a process. And the other thing you need to know is this process, these complaints don't move fast a lot of times. Sometimes they can take months. The ones that went to trial for me, they took over a year and a half, 12, 15 months before the final resolution came. So you can be going through this a long time. So what do you do during that time period? What are the things you should be doing? What are the things you shouldn't be doing? So let's talk about those. And so the first thing I want to tell you is, in spite of the disappointment, if you're trying to help somebody, give them a break, whatever, stay positive and don't get bitter, okay? Staying positive through the situation will greatly help you not make a mistake, because when you get bitter and you get angry, you're going to do something, you're going to say something, or you're going to email something that's going to hurt you. Don't do that. Stay positive. This goes with leadership, unfortunately. And we are going to talk about in the next section, there are ways you can avoid this or ways that you can help your office avoid these kind of complaints. And I think it really does work, but you can't avoid everyone. So it comes with the territory. You got to roll with it. You got to stay positive and you got to move forward. So stay positive. Don't get bitter. The other things you want to do is you want to be absolutely honest in the EEO process. Do not submit anything on the forms that they ask, the questions they ask you, that you do not know to be true and accurate. We talked about it before. If you don't know the information, go look it up. Don't put anything on the form that you don't know. Don't speculate, all right? Be honest in everything you put on that form. The other thing you want to do is you want to fully cooperate in the process. Now, sometimes I had these EEO investigators calling me and they wanted me to drop everything I was doing and respond to their questions. And sometimes it wasn't possible. And I told them, no, I cannot meet with you tomorrow. That's not possible. I'm on travel. I don't have the material, and I can't answer the questions right now. And I would make an appointment maybe for the following week sometime. Sometimes they're in a rush and they want to push you. Don't let them push you. You want to cooperate, but you don't have to drop everything you're doing, okay? This is important because you don't want to rush through the questions and not put down what you should be putting down or say something in those questions that you shouldn't say. We talked about the affidavit. They're usually going to ask you to fill out an affidavit on the questions that were asked. So you want to cooperate fully, but at the same time, it should work around your schedule. And the process can be lengthy, so be aware of that. The other thing you want to do is you want to fly the airplane. I have a chapter, I wrote a book called Your Finest Hour is Now, Lessons in Leadership. And one of the great chapters in that book, it has 28 fantastic chapters, selfish plug here, okay, is fly the airplane. These complaints can be incredibly distracting to you as a leader, right? because you've got all this other stuff going on, and then you get this complaint, and you've got, sometimes there are 10 questions, sometimes there are 20 questions, and you've got to go do all that stuff there and talk with the attorneys and deal with the EEOC, and they can last for quite a while. So it can be incredibly distracting. And what you need to do during this time is continue to work with your other employees. You don't want to not work with them and do the things you should be doing as a leader to make yourself successful. So continue to fly the airplane, do what you still need to do, and try to keep the distraction of these complaints to a minimum so you can keep achieving the results that you're achieving. So you want to fly the airplane. So let's talk about some of the don'ts now. All right, so those are some of the do's. Let's talk about some of the don'ts. The first thing you don't want to do, now, I'm going to ask you to go back to the first section of this video. What was the number one complaint that the EEO receives almost every year? What was the number one for 2021? Do you remember what that was? I'll give you a second to think about it. The number one category of complaint they receive is retaliation. And we talked about what retaliation is. Once a person files a complaint, they are a complainant, all right? Even if the complaint goes nowhere, the EEO says this is garbage, throwing it out, dismissed. That person can then file a retaliation complaint because now they've participated in the EEO process, and anything you do to them after that they perceive as being retaliated against for participating in the process, they can file a complaint. You don't want to do that. Do not retaliate, okay? We talked about staying positive, right? So don't retaliate. You treat the person as normal, all right? You treat them just like everybody else. And you hold them accountable just like everybody else, all right? One of the folks that I had that filed a complaint thought he didn't have to work anymore. He didn't have to do his work. Well, no, that's not going to work. If we're paying you, if you're grabbing a paycheck every week, you're going to do the work as everybody else. Now, I didn't hold him to any standard that I didn't hold everybody else to. And that's the key, is the standard is the same. You have to do this amount of work every month. You have to produce these amount of results, the timeliness, the quality, all right? You treat them as normal and you hold them accountable, even though you're going through this process, because the process can drag on for months and sometimes years, all right? But they still got to do their work, and they still got to do it just like everybody else does it. They don't get a free pass. So don't retaliate, treat them as normal, hold them accountable, and you confront them as normal. And I got to tell you, on one person in particular, we would have meetings. I would have quarterly meetings, and while the complaint process was going on from a complaint this person filed, he actually filed many, he would come up to me and talk to me at break and just, talk about the weather or something like that. I treated him just like everybody else. I wasn't not going to talk to him just because he filed a complaint. I treated him just like everybody else. And that's the key. You don't want to do anything in any way that looks like retaliation. So don't do that. The other thing is, we talked about this before, but I need to emphasize this. Don't speculate when they ask you questions, when the EEO asks you questions. If you don't know, you don't know. If you got to go look at the data, go look at the data, but don't put down anything in there that you're not willing to get on the stand, raise your right hand and testify to that it's truthful and accurate. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to say you don't know. I had a complaint. I was called as a witness on an EEO complaint in another division that was thousands of miles away. And I don't know why they put me as a witness, because I knew, well, I had been in that division, but it had been years. And suddenly I get this EEO investigator calling me. I wasn't the focus of the complaint. I was just one of the witnesses. And I had to answer all his questions like, I have no idea. I'm not aware of this. I was not in that office. If you weren't there, you have nothing to put in, and you don't know anything about it, state that. Don't be afraid to state that. Obviously, they thought I had some knowledge that I didn't have. So don't speculate. Don't make statements to the EEO investigator. Keep it official. They're going to ask you questions. Keep it official to the questions. Don't get in any side conversations. Anything you say to them is official. I guarantee it. Okay? They will put it in their notes. So answer their questions. Be reasonable. But keep it official. Don't go off the path there. And I'm sure your attorney, when you're dealing with this, will advise you of such. But just as a reminder. The other thing you don't want to do You don't want to have any conversations with the complainant that deal with the complaint process, all right? Again, everything is official. Now you might say, Steve, that's crazy. Well, I thought it was crazy too, but I've had complainants come in my office and want to talk about the complaint with me. You should not, let me tell you, I recommend you do not talk with them about the complaint. And this is where you need to get advice from an attorney, but anything you say to the complainant regarding the complaint becomes official. All they have to do is call their attorney after talking to you and say what you said. And that could be, they could interpret that as admission of guilt or whatever, all right? My process was always, once it's official, it's official. If you want to talk settlement, if you want to talk mediation, you go talk to our corporate attorney, you go talk to our HR office, and they'll talk to me and we'll work it that way. That's how you do it officially. And the reason I'm counseling you on this is because anything you say to an EEO complainant that in any way could be interpreted as you trying to prevent them from participating in the process or dropping their complaint is a violation of EEO law. So you don't want to do that. I just strongly recommend you keep it official. I've had conversations with complainants while the complaint was going on, but it didn't involve the complaint. If they brought up the complaint and they want to talk about the complaint, they got to go to my attorney. That's the way it has to work. Okay? And the other thing is, don't share any EEO conversations you have outside the channels that you're working in. That's not to be shared with other employees. You keep it internal. This is private information. This is a private process. The employee has a right to go through this process. They have the right to privacy during the process. Don't spread it around. Just keep it with you. Sometimes the complainant itself, the complaining person will spread it around, but don't let that be you. You keep it personal and private and show respect for the person that's making the complaint. Okay, so those are some of the do's and don'ts. I hope those help you out a little bit. Those come from a lot of personal experience in the process, keeping you safe and keeping you, most importantly, keeping you doing your job and getting results that you're supposed to get. And that's the important part. So in the next section, we're going to look at how to prevent complaints. And this is really important. There are some things you can do to help minimize complaints. You're never going to get them to zero. If you're in a larger office, you're not, okay? But you can minimize them. There are things you can do to help minimize the number of complaints. And I was very successful at this, believe it or not. I had large offices and I had very few complaints over the years overall, because there are some things you can do. So we're going to talk about that next. That's a very important section, and stay tuned. I hope this video helped you, and there is one more video in this series you don't want to miss. And it's one of the most important things everybody wants to do, and that is how to prevent EEOC complaints. This benefits you, this benefits your organization, and it benefits your employees. And I'm going to give you some really good suggestions on things you should be doing to help prevent complaints, because sometimes there are things you can do to listen to employees and do things to prevent these complaints from coming in the first place. And if you can prevent a complaint, you're saving yourself a lot of time, you're saving your organization a lot of money, and you're saving your employees a lot of headaches also. So that's a really important video to finish out this series. Don't miss it. Please subscribe, and we'll see you on that video. Take care.